Okay guys, so people are blowing up my phone asking me exactly what is this government shutdown? Why is it happening? What's happening? What's causing it? Can't the Republicans just override it? Yada yada yada. So let's go through and break this all down for you. So what exactly is a government shutdown? Okay, so as you know, federal employees get paid. Too much if you ask me, but still, regardless. And obviously to do that, there needs to be a transfer of funds. Obviously there's X amount of dollars that obviously people get paid, yada yada yada. And this is basically what a government shutdown is. So it's when Congress needs to pass a bill resolution by a certain time that will issue funds for federal employees. So, for example, your post office workers, your military, your hospital staff, whoever it may be that is obviously federal employed. So now you're probably wondering, well, don't the Republicans, don't they run Congress? Can't they just get it passed? Well, no, actually, because at the end of the day, they need 60 votes. The Republicans themselves actually only hold 51. So you got 51 Republicans, 47 Democrats, and 2 independents. So you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, so why don't the Democrats just pass the bill? Why don't they want people to get paid? Well, the reason is because they're trying to hold out for what they want. So it's a bit like emotional blackmail in a way. They're basically saying that we won't pass this bill or these funds to allow you to pay the federal employees unless we get what we want. So it's a bit of a negotiation that goes on both sides. The Democrats want certain things, the Republicans want certain things, and they basically wheel and deal. So you're probably wondering, well, what do they want? What are they wheeling and dealing about? So the major thing is DACA. Now, DACA is a Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Now, it's kind of an administrative relief for deportation. The purpose of DACA is to protect eligible migrant youth who came under the United States when they were children from deportation. DACA gives you undocumented migrants protection from deportation and a working permit. The program expires after 2 years and is subject to renewal. Now, so at the end of the day, these are illegal children, quote, children, who have come over, and obviously the Republicans want the illegals out. So, yeah, I can sort of understand why the Republicans want this. We actually have a leaked memo that came out recently that actually showed that the Democrats are betting on DACA for their midterm elections. Their whole plan to win the midterms is these 800,000 DACA children, quote, children, and they're basically going to be using them for votes. Obviously, that's 800,000. Most of those are going to be voting for the Democrats. Obviously, also, too, when we're talking about children, quote, they're not really children. In fact, by now, these children have grown up. They're all in their roughly 20s or 30s, so they're actual able-bodied people. They just haven't got around to getting their citizenship, and then obviously the Republicans want them out. So, like I say, yeah, you can sort of understand, I can understand why the Democrats want them to stay. Obviously, if you go kicking the parents out and then the children stay, it's going to split up families. If you go kicking the kids out with the mothers, then, or the parents, then obviously at the end of the day, you're kicking a kid out who grew up in a country. It's a mess, and it should have never been brought through in the first place, but it was, and now we're just trying to clean up Obama's mess. The problem is that with DACA, it isn't up until the 5th of March. So they still actually have time after this budget. But that said, if the Democrats go through and actually allow this bill to pass, they actually lose their leverage when it comes to DACA. So at the end of the day, that's why the Democrats are holding out, because they don't want to wait till March 3rd or 4th or whatever to vote for DACA, because then they've already passed the bill, and what's the point? There's no leverage. So another problem is a long-term budget deal. Don't click off. I'm going to make it simple. I know people hate talking about finance, but I'm going to put this simply put. So the fiscal year begins October the 1st, okay? That's the new year. But instead of passing a full year appropriations for each federal department and agencies, and bundling them all into an omnibus, lawmakers have relieved on a series of stopgap bills known as continual resolutions. So, for example, it's like saying, okay, we need this amount of money to run for the next year. So say they need, say, $20 million. Now, instead of passing a budget for $20 million, they keep passing budgets for $3 or $4 million. So while that gets you out of the shit, so to speak, for the next 3 months or 4 months or whatever it may be, it doesn't give you the full amount of money that you need, which means you're constantly having to go back and forward to try and wheel and deal so that you can get the future bills passed. Now, at the end of the day, the Republicans and Democrats both hate this idea. In fact, both of them would love to get rid of these short-term bills. In fact, the biggest hold-up that actually for the bipartisan budget agreement is the fight on whether the significant increase in defense spending demanded by the Trump administration is matched by an equal boost in domestic spending. Now, obviously, that's what the Democrats want. Officials in both parties have stated in recent days that the two sides are actually close to a budget deal, that the Democrat leaders won't give their blessing until an immigration agreement is also reached. The cap deal is very, very close, and I think the Dems are holding out on the cap deal because of these DACA negotiations. But it was Speaker Paul Ryan said earlier this week. So at the end of the day, a budget agreement would likely go for 2 years, lessening the chance of a government shutdown through 2019. Now, like I said, obviously the Republicans want more money spent on defense. Republican defense hawks in the House and Senate have revolted over the lack of a full year's spending bill for the Pentagon, which is particularly hamstrung by continuing resolutions that restrict the Defense Department's ability to plan ahead, basically meaning that at the end of the day, obviously, they can't go planning ahead because they're not sure if they're going to have money. Obviously, they'll like a full bill, so they know exactly how much money they got over the next year, so they know how much they can spend. And then, obviously, the last thing, which is the Children's Health Insurance Plan, or commonly referred to CHIP. Now, obviously, CHIP is low-cost insurance for families with incomes too high for Medicare, but potentially too low to avoid private insurance plans. So at the end of the day, obviously this is something the Democrats want. Obviously the Republicans aren't too keen on it. So obviously they're trying to wheel and deal on that as well. So you're probably wondering, has this happened before? Yeah, actually it happens quite regularly. Yeah, they never argue, do they? But yeah, basically last time it happened was back in 2013 under Obama. It was shut down from October the 1st through to October the 16th. And it's actually had 12 shutdowns since 1981. So, yeah, it's quite frequent, actually, to be honest. You're probably wondering, is this going to affect you, or how does this affect you? To be honest, in small ways and big ways. So, for example, the mail will continue to come, the military will continue to fight, social security checks will continue to be paid. But if you need a federal loan to buy a house, you'll have to wait. If you want to buy a gun permit or a passport, won't happen anytime soon. So depending on what service you use as to whether it's going to be available. Will the president get paid during the shutdown? Technically, yes, because his salary, the $400,000, is considered a mandatory spending. But as we both know, Trump isn't actually taking the money, so he'll just donate it to someone, a charity or a service, depending on who he gives it to. So what's the chances of all this basically getting sorted out over the next few days? Actually pretty good. They're actually really close to a resolution, so that would mean everything goes through, then gets passed, and everybody goes back to work. At the end of the day, the Democrats don't want to be seen as a bunch of holdouts. The Republicans obviously want to keep things moving, and obviously both sides don't want the economy to start going down, which is actually a likely effect if this lasts too long. But at the end of the day, at the moment, yeah, look, obviously it's only been about 14 hours at the time of this recording. So, yeah, it's early days still, and they're obviously staying there until they get this resolved. Even the president has said that he's not making his way to Mar-a-Lago until this is actually resolved. So who's to blame for all this? Who's actually responsible? Because a lot of people are going around pointing fingers. And at the end of the day, well, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So yeah, look, at the end of the day, obviously you've got the Democrats blaming the Republicans blaming the Democrats, everybody blaming president, mainstream news blaming the president, everybody's blaming everybody. It's like spin the bottle with blame. But yeah, basically the truth of the matter is that everybody's responsible. Obviously, at the end of the day, President Trump, his negotiation style it makes it very hard for the Democrats to get along with him, which you can't blame him for. And at the end of the day, the Democrats do hold a minority in the House. So the fact is, or the Congress, sorry. So the fact is they should be able to, or they should be willing to go through and play ball. Now, at the end of the day, obviously the Republicans have been very staunch and pig-headed, so to speak, in what they want, which you can't blame because they do hold the majority. So yeah, at the end of the day, if anybody is going to blame, if you're asking me who I would particularly blame for this, I would say the Democrats. Just because of the fact that they are the minority, they don't have the majority. So yeah, you should have been playing ball. Also, you're trying to hold out for DACA, which has until the 5th of March. I know, I get it. You don't want to hand it over because at the end of the day, you lose your bargaining chip, but you're the minority. Get over it. But yeah, that's who you want to ask who is to blame. But guys, yeah, apart from that, look, obviously if this video has been helpful, please smack a like. If you're new to the channel, welcome and subscribe. Apart from that, guys, I'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube.